Hello everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and today we're going to go through all of the things we learned last term. This is going to be a review video. This is going to help you remember some of the stuff that you may have forgotten from last term, or those of you who missed certain concepts, this will help you to learn those things. I'm going to start with how to download Visual Studio because a lot of you requested that and how to get it all set up. So it's pretty easy actually. If you just go to visualstudio.com, you'll be able to see this page. And you want to download the Visual Studio IDE. You want to go to this section. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. Basically just means that it is a piece of software that allows us to completely build new applications. And Visual Studio IDE is the one we want. There are other C# IDEs out there that you can go find and download for free. And they work just as well. I just like Visual Studio because it integrates perfectly with Unity, and that's what we're looking for. So Visual Studio IDE, going to hover over Download Visual Studio, and I'm going to click Community here. Community 2017, that's the version you want. You don't want any of the professional versions because we don't want to pay for this. So anyway, so as you saw, my download, my file browser opened up to point me to where I wanted to download it, but I'm not going to download it because I already have it installed. And as a matter of fact, I have it open here. Now, to use Microsoft Visual Studio, they'll let you use it for a month for free. Well, it's free after that, but they'll let you use it for a month as a trial period. After that, you need to sign in with your Microsoft account. So I'm already signed in. If you use this at home, you're going to want to create a Microsoft account and sign in. And again, Microsoft accounts are free, and Visual Studio is free. You just need to link your Microsoft account to it. All right, so now I'm here. And I have a couple of projects that I've been working on that are open. And I don't want to open any of these because I want to show you how to there's one more step that we have to do in order to make sure that all of our projects will be we'll be able to build all our projects. I'm going to create a new project and show you what I mean. So when I clicked create a new project, you'll probably see that I have a lot of different things here that you won't have. You'll just have a basic package. You won't have the the Windows Form apps or the console apps or any of this stuff. Now, the way I got those, and the way you're going to want to do this as well, is you want to go down here to not finding what you're looking for, open Visual Studio Installer. You're going to click that, and it's going to open a new browser window eventually, hopefully. What we're doing here is we're installing new packages, and the packages are just big repositories of oh, I guess I have to update my program. The packages are big repositories of code that will allow us to do different things. So for example, the .NET standard package that we're going to be downloading, that's the package we need to create console applications for Windows and to create Windows Forms applications, which we're going to get into in the second term. So what we're doing is we're really just creating applications for the Microsoft Windows operating system, and that .NET framework is what we're going to need to be able to do that. So once you're ready, once this opens, and it seems to be taking its time, once this opens, you'll see a menu that looks like this. And we have a lot of different options here. Universal Windows Platform Development, which is great. The .NET Desktop Development, that's the one you want. So if you don't have a checkbox next to the .NET Desktop Development, you want to click that and download it. There's other things here, development with C++, but we're not using that language. We're using C#. The ASP.NET for HTML and JavaScript, Azure tools, SDK tools for cloud. We can create cloud applications. Python, Node.js, data storage and processing for SQL, Data science and analytical applications using Python and R and F Sharp. Let's see, Microsoft Office and SharePoint development. We can create new Office applications and SharePoint solutions. Mobile development for iOS and Android. Game development with Unity, which is one we're going to want as well. But you don't need to download that now. We're not going to get into that until the third term. Mobile development with JavaScript, that's good. C++, game development with C++, Linux, Visual Studio Extension. Just it makes the program a little different, and then .NET Core cross-platform. So all these things are great, but the only one that we really need is the .NET desktop development. If you try to download all of these, it's going to take you a while. Just grab the one you want, and you can grab others as you need them and as you expand. We just need the .NET desktop development. So once that's installed, you'll be able to open up a new project, and it'll look just like this. Okay, your window should look like this. Okay, now in the first term, we've dealt strictly with console applications. Console is basically the terminal that's running behind all operating systems, right? This is my console here for my operating system. Now, from the command prompt, from the console, I can do anything that I would normally do through my operating system just by typing out commands here. This is underneath the GUI, or the graphical user interface of my computer. And anything that I can do on my desktop, like click buttons and run applications, I can do in the command prompt, but it's only text, right? So it's text only. So we're going to build applications for the console just because it's a little bit easier to do that and to understand that than it is with forms and creating an actual GUI, which we're going to do in term 2. So I'm going to create a new application. I'm just going to call this review. I'm going to make sure it's a console application. Now, it's extremely important that you select console app and that you name your projects, because your projects are going to be, we're going to build a lot of them, and you definitely want to make sure all of your stuff is named properly. Now, you can click Browse to send your project to a specific place. Usually it goes into a default folder. I'm actually going to User Storm Documents, Visual Studio Projects. Okay, that's fine. Actually, I'm going to send this to a different folder. And you just, you can just move through your. Ooh, my drives are pretty full. I'm going to go to Game Design, and I'm actually going to put this in. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it Visual Studio Projects. Okay, and I'm going to start putting all of my projects into this Visual Studio Projects folder. Okay, and I'm going to click OK. So we'll give it a second to build our project, and when it opens up, we will have full control over our IDE, and we can start actually programming. So really quickly, up here up top, you see we have a bunch of options here. These are our, our tool, or not really a toolbar, but our file menu. We can go to File, Page Setup. I mean, I'm not going to go through all of these options. There are some important things in here, but some not so important things. One thing that you might want to look at is Options. This Options menu will allow you to change the application for your specifications and for your preferences. Like, for example, for fonts and colors, I actually want to increase my font size to 16 and maybe even bigger, just so that it's easier for you guys to see what I'm typing in the application and in this video. So make it, yeah, that's fine. That looks good. So that's there. Up here you have Start. If you click this, it'll actually build and run your application. And if your application is fully complete, or if it's to a state where you have no errors and there's something to actually be done, it'll actually build an executable file, a .exe. And the .exe file is what you need to be able to run your application outside of Visual Studio. So you always want to run your programs before you turn them in, because the way I grade this is I run the exe first, and if the game works, if it plays, then I go back and look at the code to make sure there's nothing weird going on. But for the most part, I'm looking for functionality. I'm looking to make sure it actually works. You want to save your program as often as possible. You can just save all or Control-Shift-S, or you can just Control-S to save. I'm going to do it a lot. I just kind of got in the habit of Control-S pretty often, and I'm not going to tell you when I'm doing it. I'm just going to do it. You need to get into that habit as well. Okay. Over here we have our Solution Explorer. We have, this is our project folder, and then inside we have a couple different things. We have our assembly info.cs. We have references that we're linked to. We have our app configuration file. Then we have our program.cs, which is this program here. We have our main function is in here, which is right here. Now, if we wanted to open this file, all we'd have to do is double-click program.cs, and it would actually open this file for us. All right, so now this is the basic view you're going to see whenever you start a new project. You have namespace, review. Now, review is the name of the project, right? That's the project name I gave it. And then you have this bracket here. This bracket, if you'll notice, when I click next to this bracket, it highlights this bracket here. Now, there's an open bracket here and a closed bracket here. That means that everything between those two brackets belongs inside of the namespace review. And notice how everything's lined up here, or not everything, but the namespace review stuff is all lined up on this line. That's important because you want to make sure that things go inside of the things they're supposed to go inside of. Everything needs to go inside the namespace. And then right after that, you have class program. So this class is the program that we're building. And again, we have an open bracket and a closed bracket, right? And so everything that goes inside of the class goes inside these brackets. And notice it's indented again, one tab space, so that we can see that that's the hierarchy of how the program works, right? So this is the namespace, this is the class, and then inside the class we have the main function, or the main method, sorry. This main method is essentially all the things that your application is going to do. As soon as your application opens up, it's going to start with the main method. Anything that's inside the main method, inside these two brackets here, anything inside the main method is going to get run first, right? So what we can do is we can start typing instructions here. So I want to do, I just want to say, how you doing, right? So I'm going to type console because I want to send something to the console. And I want to write something to the console. So I'm going to do console.write. And inside, I'm going to type hello world, right? That's pretty easy stuff. Now, what that's doing is that's saying, hey, on the console screen, I want you to write these words right here. Now, everything that I wrote is extremely important. It has to be exactly the way it's written here. Everything is case sensitive, and all of the little punctuations, they actually mean something and matter, right? Console means the thing, the object I'm directing this instruction to. The dot means there's an instruction that console understands, and it's right. So I'm saying I want to access console, I want to access this instruction, and then inside of these parentheses is what I'm sending to the right instruction. And you want to make sure the parentheses are correct and they go around everything that you're looking for. Now, the quotes are important as well, because the quotes mean that what's inside of here is a string. A string is simply a series of characters that display like text. It's like this is just text that I want to put on my screen. The quotation marks are extremely important because it's saying everything in between these quotes is going to be displayed exactly the way it's written out. And then at the very end, I have this semicolon. Semicolons are extremely important because they indicate to your program or to the compiler, the thing that we're using right now, they indicate that, hey, this line is finished, right? They say, hey, this is a finished line. This is a end of this instruction. So almost every line is going to have a semicolon at the end. Not every line. There are some differences. There are some variations to that. Now, if we were to run this application right now, you might think that this would pop up on the screen, and you'd be right. But it would go away so quickly that there's no way we would be able to see it. So one thing that we have to do is we have to tell the program to wait for our instructions so that we can actually see the text that's on the screen. So I'm going to access console again, and instead of write, I'm going to tell it to read. And that basically just means, hey, instead of doing something, we're going to wait for something to happen. It's going to read for my keystroke. It's going to wait for me to give it a keystroke. Now notice I didn't put anything inside of the parentheses because I don't really care what keystroke we're waiting for, right? So now at this point, I'm going to save my program and I'm going to click Start. And it's going to take a while to build your program if you're building it for the first time. But now, as you can see, the console pulled up, right? That command prompt, that CMD, that console thing that I showed you before. And my console.write hello world actually showed up on the screen. Look at that, hello world, exactly the way I typed it out. And now my program's waiting for me to do something. That blinking line means that blinking thing is my cursor, and it's saying, hey, do something here. Now if I do something, if I hit any key, the program goes away because I've told it to read and wait for my instructions. So that's a first program. We're done with that, and we've built the first program. But what about if we want to add some, let's add some more stuff. And now at this point, it's pretty easy to type whatever we want, right? We can just put any instructions we want on the screen. Right? We just put whatever we want. We just have to. Now, we've been using console writes, and if I run this, you're going to see why console write is only useful in certain situations. So if you see hello world, I am glad to have you here, those two things actually ended up on the same line. Sometimes we don't want that. So what we can do is instead of a write, we can do a console write line, and that will actually put what we want on the screen, and then it will go to the next line in the text. Let's hit start. So now you can see the format's different. Hello world, I'm glad to have you here. Now it's not smushed up against each other, right? Perfect. Let's do another one. Okay. How old are you? Or let's see, let's do this. What is your name? So I want to actually have my user give me some input. I want my user to tell me something. And I want to be able to print that to the screen. Now the problem is, I don't know what my user's name is. We don't know who's going to be using this application. So we need to do something. We need to actually find a way to store that name. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new variable. I'm going to create a string variable, because remember what I told you before, everything between these quotations is a string. I'm going to create a string variable. I'm going to call it name. And that's pretty easy, right? I just want to create a new string variable and call it name. Now what a variable does is a variable is like a place to save some information, right? If I create a new variable and I call it name, it's like I'm taking a bucket, an empty bucket, and I'm putting a piece of duct tape on the outside, and I'm writing name on that duct tape. So I have an empty bucket with the name, and there's nothing in it yet, but we can actually put something in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them a place to type. I'm going to use a write for this one. And I'm just going to give them space to type their name. And I want to accept that input as and put that into the name variable. So I'm going to say the name variable equals console dot read line. Okay, and that's going to actually read whatever they type, that whole line, and it's going to put that into the variable. I'm going to put read line down here too. So now I have something stored in their name variable. I'm going to clear the screen to get rid of all of that stuff. And I'm going to put their name on the screen. I'm going to say something like, oh, I'm glad to meet you, whatever their name is, right? Now, because I don't know what they typed, I want to actually use the name variable. But we have a problem here. If I was to do something like this, it's just going to print name on the screen, right? We don't want that. We want to put what's inside the name variable. So what we need to do is right before the first quote, we need to put a $sign. And then inside here, we need to wrap the name variable with these brackets. And what that's going to do is that's going to say, all right, this is a variable. So this $sign says, hey, there's a variable somewhere in this string, so you want to find that variable and access it. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. Let's run the program and let's see what we've done. Okay, hello world, I'm glad to have you here. What is your name? My name is David. I'm going to hit enter. Oh, it's good to meet you, David. So if you see, what we did there was I entered what my name was. It was stored in the name variable here, and then we output whatever was inside the name variable in the string, right? And it can be anything. We can type anything we want, right? And it'll automatically put that in there, right? So that's the power of variables, and that's why we want to use variables as much as possible. Okay, so let's talk about conditionals, right? Let's talk about conditional statements. Now, all of this is good, but it's no good if there's nothing for us to do, right? If there are no decisions for my program to make, there's not really anything that I can say about it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to console write line. Are you a boy or a girl? Okay. And I'm going to give them the choice, gender, of boy or girl. Now, I want another string to hold that choice, right? So I'm going to do string gender. And down here, I'm going to do gender equals console dot read line. Okay, now this is perfectly fine. Now we've already done all this. We know how to do this, right? But what I want to do is from here, I want to make a decision based on what they entered. So I'm going to put if gender equals male, or we'll do boy. So gender equals boy. Now notice I have two equal signs here. That means I'm not making gender equal boy, I'm checking to see if gender equals boy, right? And there's no semicolon at the end of this statement because the statement's not done. Okay? What I want inside of these two brackets, is whatever is going to get run if gender equals boy. So if gender equals boy, I want to, you know what would be fun? Let's change the, you know what we can do? This is a good idea. I have a great idea. Let's change the console color. Let's change the background color if based on what gender they are. So let's do that too. Let's do that really quickly. So I want to do console dot background color, and I'm going to do equals console color dot blue. Okay, so I'm going to change the background color to blue, and I'm going to say what's up, bro? Okay, so that's if they enter boy, but what if they enter girl, right? Well, we can do basically the same thing, but instead of another if, we want to just do an else if. Meaning, if it's not boy, then we check to see if it is girl. And if it is a girl, we want to change it to pink. Does pink not work? Let's try, let's see, what's a good color that the console can recognize? Let's do, I don't know, let's do a magenta. Okay. Hey girl, right? Perfect. So now we have boy, we have girl, but as we know, gender isn't binary, right? So the boy and girl aren't the only options. What if they enter anything else, right? Well, we have a way to catch that. Else, basically, it's not boy, it's not girl. What did they enter? We can say, alrighty, and we're going to change it to, let's change it to green. Okay. We'll just say good to know. All right. Now, there's one thing that I just remembered that I forgot. One thing that I need to do before the background color is actually going to change. And that's, I have to clear the screen. Dot clear after every background color change statement. Don't forget to do that, because your background color won't change and you'll be freaking out and you'll not know why. Oh, hit the wrong key. Okay. So now we should have our background color change based on whether or not we're a boy or a girl. So I'm going to Control S, and I'm going to start and see what my program says. Hello, I'm glad to have you here. What's your name? David. Oh, that went away quickly. Are you a boy or a girl? Well, I'm a boy. What's up, bro? Let's fix that problem with the that going away too quickly. Console.readLine. So now we'll actually be able to see that. All right. Let's try it again. Hello, what is your name? Davina. Oh, it's good to meet you, Davina. Are you a boy or a girl? I'm a girl. Hey, girl. Okay. Let's try it again. What is your name? Zarlax. It's good to meet you, Zarlax. Are you a boy or a girl? Alien cephalopod. Good to know. Okay, and that's really hard to read. But anyway, cool. So now we know that our program works the way we want. If they type the right thing, then we get different considerations. We get different lines of code that run based on what they've typed. So at this point, you can make all kinds of decisions about your program, and you can make your program do all kinds of different things. I mean, this is essentially the basics that you need to understand about computer programming. All right, so what's next? Let's do, what should we do next? We have conditionals. Let's see. Let's talk about a switch. Yeah, let's make a switch, because switches are fun too. So once the conditionals are done, let's go ahead and clear the screen. Oh, not clear screen. Let's clear. And actually, let's put a read line there so we don't forget. Okay. So now after the clear, what I want to do is I want to give them the option of, how about we do it this way? Let's do console dot write line. What is your favorite kind of movie? And down here, we're going to give them a menu. We're just going to say, like, 1, horror. Console.writeline. 2 is action. We'll say 3 is, romantic comedy. Okay. And we're going to give them a choice. Okay, we're going to give them space to put their choice. And I don't want to write line, actually. I want to write. Okay. Now, we need to create a new variable. So I'm going to go back up to where my variables are. I'm going to create a new string variable called movie. And down here, I'm going to write movie equals console.read line. Okay. And now, instead of using a bunch of if-else's to determine what they wrote, I want to use a switch. What a switch is it basically lets us consider one variable and handle multiple different versions or multiple different variations of what that variable could have in it very quickly. So I'm going to write a switch. I'm going to base it off of the movie variable. Okay. And inside of this switch, I want to handle any different possible cases that we could have. So I'm going to type case. Let's say they type in the word or the number 1. And yeah, let's say they type in 1, right? I want to type, console dot write line. I'm going to type, boo, you scaredy cat. Oh. Okay. Now, with a switch, it's really important that in every case you have a break statement. Break statement means to break out of the switch and move on with the rest of the code, right? Now, if they type 1, it's going to go to this, and it's going to put this on the screen. Well, we can actually handle more than one case, or we can handle more than one condition that will run the same line of code. We just have to type it like this. So let's say they type horror. Or let's say they type horror, right? So if they type any of these things, it's actually going to run this code. All right, let's do the same thing for action. And actually, I'm just going to copy because I like copy and paste. It is awesome. And I'm just going to change this to a 2 change this to action, and change that to action. You're reckless, Mendoza. Give me your badge. Okay. And then romantic. Romantic. I'm actually going to just make it romantic. All right. And then I'm going to say, I don't know. I'll never love anyone like I loved you. All right, anyway. So now we have different cases, and we can make this as long as we want. This switch can be as long as we want to make it. As you'll see in the first assignment in term 2, we build a switch that has 15 different cases in it. And so we can make these as long as we want. But what we always want at the end of a switch is we want the default case. And what default does is it basically acts as a catch-all. It acts as a catch-all. It basically says if none of these cases have been met, then we're going to run the default, right? Okay, perfect. So now, oh, not copy, save. Let's run it and see if that little extra piece actually works now. So, what is your name, David? Oh, it's good to meet you, David. Are you a boy or a girl? I'm a boy. What's up, bro? What's your favorite kind of movie? Well, I like horror movies. Boo, you scaredy cat. See? So that works. All right, so I think I'm going to call this video pretty much done, and we will talk about loops, and we will talk about methods and you know, a couple of more advanced concepts in the next video. But I think this is pretty good for right now. This is a pretty long video. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm more than happy to help. Thank you for paying attention, and I'll see you out there.